Hello and welcome to the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast. It is August 9th, 2024. This is episode 251. Stand-up comedian, actor, and improviser, and dreamer Paul Green. Sharing my journey with all of you. So let me recap briefly what's going on with my comedy journey. Last night had a incredible comedy show, the Midlife Crisis Comedy Show with my comedy partner, Josh Novi, at JP's Comedy Club in Gilbert. It was an incredible show. We had an amazing audience, and we're really starting to dial in that show. It just seems to be getting better and better as Josh and I get more tight and more comfortable on stage, more comfortable bouncing off each other. The entire second half of the show is entirely improvised, which is something I don't think that I've taken a moment to really acknowledge and appreciate, that we're pretty much doing a 45-minute improvised comedy show with no other constraints than we just bring people from the audience on stage and then interact with them. And the challenge for us is we need to make those interactions as entertaining and as funny as, you know, any other comedy show that has stand-up comedians with prepared stand-up material that they know is funny. But that's also really how I got my start, which was doing improv comedy, and being spontaneous and improvisational is actually probably a bigger strength of mine than doing written material. For those of you who follow the podcast know that I have been very much in a journey of trying to write new material and trying to get that new material to match the improv skill set that I have acquired over many years. This started to sound very arrogant to me, more so than normal. But anyway, so the show last night, again, really, really fun. We had the first guest that we called up on stage. Those of you who are not familiar with the Midlife Crisis Comedy Show, ultimately what we do is we have anybody in the audience who wants put their name in a bucket. And then as part of the show, we just call names randomly out of the bucket to get random audience members on stage. And then we call them on stage and we just talk to them about their life, their jobs, their careers, their families, whatever it is. And we just sort of riff with them and play off their whatever it is that they bring up. And then it all culminates in an improvised song. So I have my keyboard on stage. And both Josh and I are improv singers, improv musicians, and so we will spontaneously create a song off the cuff based off of whatever it is that they talked about, and it's incredibly fun. The first woman to come on stage, she was so shy, and she goes, "Oh, my life is so boring. There's not a lot to me." And then she ended up having some of the most bizarre, crazy stories, and her interview ended up lasting more than half the show. Like we try to anticipate interviewing about 3 people. By the time we got done with her, we barely had time to get 2 more. And the last person we interviewed, we had to cut way, way short. We only talked to them for like 6 or 7 minutes because it was getting to the point to where we were starting to go over our time. And it was like we were in the middle of this last interview and the club owner gave us the light. I'm like, oh, crap. We've got to wrap up this interview and do the song and end the show like right now. So anyway, back to the first interview. She was so interesting. So she started out, she's like a middle-aged white woman and, you know, kind of homely looking, you know. So yeah, you would think, oh, okay, you know, maybe not the most fascinating stories. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be judgy. I'm just painting the scene. And she's like, oh, I'm a middle school teacher and I live in Illinois and I'm just visiting my daughter here in Arizona. So again, like that all seemed very, very, sort of normal. But then somehow, I don't remember exactly how it happened, but we made some joke about how she does some sort of charity work or something. Oh, I know what it was. She said that she taught middle school, but then she mentioned that she actually teaches special needs kids. So, of course, that makes it a little bit more, a little bit more nuanced than just teaching middle school. And then we started to riff off of that, and then we started calling her a saint. And then somehow, I don't even remember why, just as a ridiculous comment, I made something like, oh yeah, you're such a saint, and next thing you know, you're going to go to a nunnery. And when I said that, her daughter, who's in the audience, goes, she was actually in a nunnery. And we're all like, wait, what? Like, we thought she was joking. Turns out she was a nun, or was not a nun, but at a convent, and I guess was maybe training to be a nun. And then she said her first husband would actually come to the nunnery and pick her up and take her out on dates. And it just got more layered and more fascinating. And so we ended up talking to this woman for a very long time. And it was so much fun. And the audience was just rolling laughing at her stories and how Josh and I were interacting with her and riffing off her. And then we, we did her song. I think she wanted like a rock and roll song. So we sort of did a Bruce Springsteen-esque rock and roll song. So it was so much fun. It was such a great show. And it's just very exciting. So Josh and I are really looking to take the Midlife Crisis comedy show on the road. We have a couple people starting to help manage a tour for us. We are looking at venues across the country just to see what we can do. And speaking of touring, actually tonight, Josh and I will be driving down to Tucson, Arizona to do the first of 2 shows down there. So we have a show tonight and a show tomorrow night in the Tucson area. And that will be exciting. This will be the first time that we will do the Midlife Crisis comedy show outside of the Phoenix area. We've really only done 5 shows, if I remember correctly. We've done 4 at JP's, 5 if you include our birthday show. We did a birthday show there, which was sort of a derivative of what we do. And then we did 1 show at the Tempe Improv. So maybe 5 or 6 shows that we've done. And every single one of them just seems to go really well. So it's very exciting to have this show that's a bit of a unique concept and that seems to be going very well and is a lot of fun and has the potential to grow and expand. And we will now be taking our talents down to Tucson, Arizona this weekend and see how the shows go down there. So all very exciting stuff. And it's just exciting. It's inspiring, and it's just one of those things that just sort of came out of nowhere. This was not how I thought my comedy dream would be going. I always thought that, I'm just going to pursue comedy as a stand-up, and then eventually I'll get some big break or something like that. I'll get a big TV spot, and that'll give me more exposure, and then I can leverage that and blah, 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 blah. But that's not how it has been happening. What happened instead was I did a episode of this podcast. I brought Josh on the podcast. We had a great conversation, and then he reached out to me and asked if I wanted to do a podcast together with him. I initially didn't really want to. I just figured, I already do a daily podcast that not a lot of people listen to. So why do I want to start another podcast that not a lot of people are going to listen to? And, but I did it anyway, and then that quickly evolved into a live show, and now the live show is just going so well, and it's so exciting. So very, very cool stuff. So anybody out there, when you're pursuing your dreams, sometimes the opportunities are going to come in the ways you weren't anticipating, but it will be a result of the work that you put in, even though the outcome may not necessarily be linear. stuff happens. Stuff happens if you're out there putting in the work and you're out there just pursuing your dreams and putting passion and energy and effort into it. So whatever it is you're out there trying to pursue or make happen in your life, keep at it and be open to opportunities that may come in a manner you were not anticipating. So, speaking of getting to Tucson, I got to get on the road here, so I'm going to have to cut this one a little short, but I do want to stick with my analysis of the 48 Laws of Power. So if you have been watching or listening to the podcast, you know that every day I have been talking about a chapter of the 48 Laws of Power, which is a book that I started reading with very different expectations of what the book would be, and it's been an interesting read for me because it's a book that I can't actually disagree with. However, I don't like it nonetheless. And the 48 Laws of Power, most of them, the majority of them, I find to be quite sinister and maybe even evil. The way that the book talks about how to gain power and how and really talks about gaining power at the expense of people who you will need to victimize and almost become predatory or manipulative towards in your pursuit of power, which, you know, it's just not really how I want to live my life. And I do have to say that with an asterisk and go, but I also am fully aware that we do live in a human society and human beings can be quite despicable. And sometimes as a means of survival, you do have to have your guard up and not be naive to the fact that although you may not want to manipulate and victimize individuals in your pursuit of power, that there are definitely individuals who have no second thought about doing the same to you. So maybe if nothing else, reading this book has just reminded me that there are probably people reading this book as a play-by-play and going, oh, okay, so that's what I need to do to gain the power and influence and wealth and whatever it is they are seeking. And that you may be a pawn in their scheme, in their rise to power. And I think that is just important to acknowledge and to be aware of, and to maybe, if anything, be a little bit more conscious in when you meet people, and maybe just, you know, I don't know. I don't like living life, you know, just assuming that everybody is evil. I really try to assume that most people have good intentions, and I think they do, but that is not to say that there are not people out there who would not think twice about throwing you under the bus if it means saving their own skin. So, enough about that. Let's talk about today's law of power. So, today's law of power was to discover a man's thumbscrew. To put it another way, this law is encouraging you to find people's weakness, whether that's an emotional weakness, a psychological weakness, a vice, an addiction, a secret, whatever it is. It's kind of like trying to find their Achilles heel, and then, of course, once you know their Achilles heel, yay, you can use that Achilles heel to destroy them. What a fun message. You know, again, I get it that is an effective way to screw people over, to find out what their weakness is. I mean, it's what every advertiser has been doing since the beginning of time. Try to figure out what it is that people want, what it is they're afraid of, what it is that they desire, and then create advertising to speak to that weakness or that fear, to manipulate them into buying your product. So, fair enough. I get it. And I would guess, like, maybe if I just frame it up like this, with any element of power, you have the capacity to use that power for good or to use that power for evil. And I would prefer living in a world where people are trying to help and encourage and collaborate and work together to create common good instead of one person using manipulation tactics and finding out people's weakness to then destroy them in their own quest for power. But hey, I get it. I can't stop those individuals who are trying to gain power for sinister purposes. I'm just, I'm only one man. I'm just trying to make jokes and make people laugh. Yeah. So I'd say if you find people's weakness, be aware of that and find ways to work with them in a manner that helps them grow and become stronger and allows you to collaborate with them in a manner to create something even better than what you could do apart. I think a lot about that with my partner, Josh. He has weaknesses. I have weaknesses. I have insecurities. He has insecurities. We're very open about them. We talk about them, and then we discuss plans on how we can collaborate together and use our strengths, notwithstanding our weaknesses, to move this comedy show forward. And the people that we have brought on board to work with us, it's the same thing, but we all genuinely want the same thing, and we want growth, and we want positive comedy and positive art being put out into the world, help people have a couple laughs to maybe make the world not seem so evil and sinister when we know it is full of people who are reading the 48 Laws of Power and are doing so with the intention of less than ideal intentions. But other than that, everybody, let's keep moving forward. Keep trying to pursue those dreams. Find ways to find fulfillment, find joy, find ways to collaborate, work together with like-minded people who have good intentions and want good things, and trying to accomplish more together than you could as an individual. That, to me, is something that has brought tremendous joy and fulfillment. Instead of me trying to be Mr. Solo Comedian, doing it all on my own, being able to work with an incredibly talented, compassionate human being like Josh, our social media manager, Lily, who's incredible. She's been helping us out a ton. And, even, people who are helping us out, in different ways. The club owner of JP's and his family giving us a stage, giving us a show once a month is so huge. And, none of us are trying to screw each other over. We're all trying to make it win-win. We're all trying to go, all right, how can we make this work? How can we make the finances work? How can we make the money work? How can we make the, what do we all want? What do we all want out of this, and how can we all work together to help all of us achieve our individual dreams and goals by collaborating together? I know, it sounds very kumbaya, my lord. Let us hold hands and sing in the spirit of brotherly love and harmony. But you want to know what? Just as much as evil and sinister and power-seeking human beings exist, I've also found there are plenty of loving, compassionate human beings who actually do want good things and want to be supportive and want to collaborate and work together. So my suggestion is try to find the latter if you can. And I'm very fortunate to be surrounded by people who are so incredibly gifted and talented and compassionate and just good-hearted, good-natured human beings. So all right, everybody. So that's going to be all for today. I love you all so much. I hope your dreams are going well. You're out there pursuing them, finding joy in your journey. So this is the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast. It is August 9th, 2024, episode 251. I love you all so much, and I will check in with you tomorrow.